Alright, like I said earlier, that React is a component-based library which divides the UI into little reusable pieces called components. But sometimes these components, they have to send data to each other, and the way to do that is the use of props. So basically, props or properties is a keyword in React used to pass data from one component to another. So, and basically they are like your function arguments in JavaScript. Now let's look at some of the features of these props. One is that they are immutable, so the data here are immutable. By that, the child inherits the data but doesn't actually edit it or change it, so it only inherits the data. The second one is the data, they are passed in unidirectional flow, so they move from parents to the child component, and it's only in one direction, parent to child, not child to parent. So that's it. One is that the data cannot be changed, it can only be inherited, and secondly, they only move from parents to the child component. Alright, next up I'll move to my text editor and show you various ways of using these props. Alright, so here we have a function component that outputs hello John. So when I save this and open it up in my browser, it's going to say hello John. So in order to use props, how this actually work is, first you define an attribute and its data, you pass it to the child components, and then you render to the props data. So basically I'll go back to my text editor here. Now instead of using John here, I'm going to put props. So we're going to be using this curly braces, please take note of that. So here I have props.name, and I'm going to be using my const here. Const, let's call this greet, and I'll say this is equal to, open up my tag here, and I'll copy the name of these component here, and I'm going to paste it here. Name equals, okay, let's call this David, and I'll come here and change this to greet. So when I save this up in my browser, then close this up, so when I save, it's going to say hello David. So you can see that. So let's say I want to sort of greet a lot of people here. Instead of saying just David, I want it to be David, maybe John, Peter, and the rest. So we're going to do that again, but I'm going to be using a div tag. Alright, so here I have created another component. This is the child component, and I'll be using props here to pass data from this one to the child. So when I open this up in my browser, it's going to say hello David, and that's that. So let's say I want to greet more than one person. I'll just copy this and Ctrl C there, and I'll paste it, and enter again. I'll paste it, and okay, we said let this one be John, and this will be, let's say, Peter. So when I save this and open it up in my browser, you'll notice it's going to say hello John, hello Peter, hello David. So that's basically how this works. Now I'm going to use the class component to also show you how you can use props. Alright, so here I have a class that returns I am a car. So when I open this up, it's going to say I am a car. So let's say I want to add a brand to this car. I can use props to do that. So like I said, we use our curly braces to do that, to initiate our stuff. So I'm when I was doing for function component, it was props.name, but for class component it's going to be this.props.name. So here I'm going to write this.props.brand. so I want to be using a brand here, and I'll be using my const here. The brand is Toyota, so I'm going to come here and change this to child. So when I save this up and open in my browser, it's going to say this is a Toyota car. This is a Toyota car. So that's one way to use props in your class components. So let's say I want this to give the name to different brands. I'll still do the same thing. I'll come here and I'll open up a child component and use a div to do that. Alright, let's try that. I have created a child component that is going to inherit the props from the parent component. So when I open this up in my browser, it's going to say I am a Ford car. So you can see it says I am a Ford car. Let's say I want to have different car products here. I'm going to copy this and let's call this Toyota, and I'll call this Benz. So when I save this and open it up in my browser, you'll notice it's going to say I am a Ford car, I am a Toyota car, and I am a Benz car. So these are the different ways you use your props, both for function components and your class components. Like I said, for your function component we use props.name, while for the class component we use this.props.name. This name can be anything. It can be brand, it can be car, it can be anything. Alright guys, that's my day 7 of my 100 days of code, and I'll see you in my next video. Thanks and have a lovely day.